tea?
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of your unsweetened tea down there.
From that one time that you...
Yep.
Good, I just drank my last. Yeah, that's going to be nice right now, actually.
Warm, but...
Not really.
Really?
Yeah, feel it.
Oh, no shit. There you go. Yep, right. It is rolling whenever you want to start it as an episode.
All right. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Phone Tap. This with Unc and the burnouts. Well, it's just one of the burnouts today.
Yeah,
Frank's sick.
Not with us. He's not feeling all too well.
We have a guest with us today. We're going to speak about some history, some Elmira history. We've actually been waiting for someone to come on and actually do some kind of local history and such. So go ahead, Rob, and introduce our guest.
My Uncle Derek. I guess that's about the best way I can sum it up.
I did not know he was your uncle.
Yes.
All right.
By marriage, I didn't screw anybody in this line.
No. I don't know. What do you want to start with? What was the one thing you were talking about a few episodes ago? I think you mentioned Hal E. Roach or something like that.
Oh, Hal Roach?
Well, I was talking about that history, or what is it called? The history walk or the cemetery walk through the Woodlawn Cemetery there, where they have all the celebrity people that are buried in there. They have them like people dress up as them and have them come alive and tell a story about each person. I didn't get a chance to go. I had tickets, but it was raining, and I didn't want my son to get sick, so I didn't end up going to it. I'm kind of disappointed because I really wanted to see it, but I think we were talking about Hal E. Roach and what exactly he had something to do with the Little Rascals, and I'm not sure if it was the Three Stooges or something. It was.
Oh, it definitely wasn't Three Stooges. Three Stooges were a group of four brothers and a friend who was actually a virtuoso on violin. They came up in the vaudeville circuit in the late 1920s, and that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, Larry was the violinist, actually.
Yeah, the brothers of the Three Stooges were Moe, Curly, and Shemp.
Yeah.
Three brothers. Why do I keep saying four?
I'm at the studio.
But,
Foods.
what kind of contributions did Hal E. Roach make?
Well, the comedy troupe that he actually did was Laurel and Hardy.
Really?
Yeah, and he's responsible for Our Gang.
How much do you
They later became the Little Rascals. I can't remember offhand whether or not it was before or after
Are you here?
he left the studio.
How far before was it that they predated it?
Not long. It was literally as if they just changed the name. The characters still stayed the same. And he also was a producer for the Harold Lloyd films. Harold Lloyd is most famous nowadays. You can see him hanging upside down off of clocks in high-rise buildings, and he was an acrobat. Very, very good, because none of those are fake.
Yeah, no, none of those early stunts are.
He was second behind Buster Keaton. Buster Keaton, when he was a kid, fun fact, his parents actually attached a handle to his rear end so that he would fly better. His father, whenever he'd go to throw him through the air out in either to this crowd or across the stage, he'd tell him, clench your ass.
Is that something that has to do with them hats that they used to wear with the little spinny things on top, or was that just a...
That was just a fashion trend. Everybody wore those back in the day. Everybody wore hats.
I love hats.
I hate hats.
I wear hats every day.
Kind of the reason why Groot hates hats, not because, hats in particular, but because of the way they look on people's heads. Not that, I see someone and I think that the whole thing's their head and you get confused and you realize parts of head.
I've been wearing a lot of Unc's Pep caps lately, which are knitted caps. and they're all different shapes and sizes. So I like them so because my head can breathe.
I'm not big on hats either. I like hoods.
I know we went through this yesterday, but do you have a grinder?
But yeah, I got a little shit one.
No, I'm not good on those dating apps.
Got it.
Actually, let's cover Eldridge Park, because you've over the course of the couple of years, you told me a lot of really cool stuff that used to be there and it's come and gone.
Like the casino,
The casino, what, didn't you mention bear wrestling as well?
Yeah, there was bear wrestling. There was a bear pit. It's where the skate park is now. There was actually a bear pit there, and they had bear fights. From the best of my knowledge, no one was ever injured.
How old are you?
Me, I'm as old as time. Next month I'll be 41.
Oh, so you're younger than I am, dude.
Yeah.
I remember when Eldridge Park actually had I've been on the roller coaster.
Yeah, I was actually, fun fact, I was conceived under the roller coaster.
Great.
That's the way they joke it. My oldest brother was conceived in a barn. My other brother in the back seat.
Sounds to me like your parents were freaks.
No, there's just really nothing to do around here.
Yeah, this is true. That's what I'm trying to fix, though. I'm trying to get something going, man, around here. And I'm not the only one. There's some other places that are trying to get this area to be a better place. I may not agree with some of them, but I agree with the fact that they are trying to bring some stuff to the area. Like, I'm not a big fan of the L, but they do bring a lot of good stuff, into their area. I'm not a big fan of it just because of how they treat people and just how they treat the whole cannabis industry. Like, they're okay with it sometimes, but they're not okay with it all the time, and it's just can't be like that, man.
No, I've never had any dealings with them yet, unfortunately.
But they definitely have a lot of good shows there. I've been to a couple of them, but
Yeah, they managed to get good people.
didn't I see that they had the Lita Ford? Lita Ford's good. She's old as shit, but she was good. I mean,
it's the only fault for around here with the live venue places when they want to get bigger acts. They always go for people that nowadays their grandparents would have known. My parents.
They're great grandparents, right?
Yeah.
They were parents when we were kids.
Like, I remember my mom was a fan of Lita Ford, but that was from her days in the Runaways. It was before her solo career. She actually hated her solo
See, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but my mom was a good friend of. I can't remember her last name. Her first name was Chris. She used to be one of the DJs on Wink 106 and 92.7, and she would always give my mom like free concert tickets whenever someone would come in the area. So I saw a lot of concerts, but I mean they were all like 80s people, like Hall and Oates. I went and saw them when they had a reunion concert, and then they brought out a new CD. It was actually a really good concert, and
they're the only
good
group
CD
from the city of Philadelphia that's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
The only group. Out of all the Philadelphia record artists, it's the Wall of Sound, that's Phil Spector, that's even Philadelphia hip-hop or rock music. But yeah,
It's just
Hall and Oates, just Hall and Oates. They're the only one. Deserving enough.
Yeah, they're good.
I mean, I always said that if I ever opened up my own shop, I'd call it the Honorable and Legally Licensed Old American Tobacco Supplies, or Hall and Oates.
Yeah.
I love Hall and Oates. I was actually just listening to them earlier.
He has that show right now, doesn't he? I don't know if he still has it on, where he brings on musical
people over to his
guests
house.
and stuff.
Yeah. Daryl Hall.
The last one I watched was the one that he had Randy Travis on there, and not a huge country fan, but
I was actually gonna go see Randy Travis at the casino up the road here, but I believe he got arrested for running around town naked.
Well, now he's in a wheelchair. He has like MS, or I don't know if it's MS or if he got something happened to him. If he got in a car accident or something, but he's wheelchair bound. That's actually the last time I saw him. He was in the wheelchair and could barely even talk. Somebody went into concert or went in on tour as him and his band. It was his real band, but the guy was like sounded like him. And they tried to bring Randy Travis on stage to like sing one of the songs with him, and he couldn't do it. He helped him finish the song, like it was like the last verse or something like that, and they said he went backstage and collapsed after that. Like he was just so tired. And I imagine that shit kicks your ass too. It's a muscular disease too. So
That's what it gets with the older fellas. Huey Lewis can't even hear music anymore.
that was someone I was going to bring up. I always tell everybody that's somebody that I wanted to see in concert. I've always wanted to see Huey Lewis and the News in concert because I grew up to their music. I mean, my aunt and uncle owned a garbage route in Williamsport, Pennsylvania for most of my childhood, and when school would get out here, I would go to Williamsport, and I would just sit with them on the route all the time, listening to the radio. Back in the '80s, so I know a lot of '80s music because of that.
Funny thing about that, all of their success that everyone knows, the 9 hits they had, the 5 off of 4, and then the 4 off of Sports. That was right. Yeah, 5 off of 4, which had 9 tracks. 4 off of Sports, which had 11 tracks. From 1983 to, because that's when Sports came out, late 83, or 4 came out, through 84 when Sports came out, Back to the Future's Power of Love, and...
which is a classic, of course.
Yeah, that one was actually on Sports, but that propelled them pretty much all through the 80s. Just those 9 hits they had in about an 18-month span.
Yeah, I mean, and then
But that's the way it is with most people. Most people hear music and they think that a lot of people had immense careers or.
Well, he also didn't he
stuff.
get some kind of I don't know if it wasn't the same thing that Meatloaf had, but it was some kind of like throat issues that he had for a while, and then when he came back
in early 2000s.
and when he came back, he was doing that movie with Gwyneth Paltrow. That
unless it's Iron Man. You mentioned Gwyneth Paltrow's name in a movie. I usually haven't seen it.
I just saw her yesterday on the
Wait, was she in Sky Captain of the World Tomorrow? Because I've seen that.
on the Drew Barrymore show. She was just down there yesterday.
Barrymore's got a show.
Yeah, I was trying to look and
Yeah.
like I'm like, all right, which one of these two is older, Drew Barrymore or Gwyneth Paltrow? Because
I actually think it's.
Drew Barrymore's
Gwyneth.
aged very well.
I actually think it's Gwyneth, but not by much.
They're both pretty sexy at this point. I don't care. I mean, I'm older than you guys, but
Oh no, I'm from the generation like I saw.
I think Paltrow is
what
gorgeous.
was it,
I think she's gay though, but I don't. I mean, who
Drew
cares?
Barrymore.
It was the
used to
film with
like
Whoopi Goldberg and something about boys not allowed or something like that.
Sister Act or something.
She went topless in that.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Although I got a kick out of her having an actual Nirvana Bleach poster hanging on her wall in that movie.
Yeah, he's the biggest Nirvana fan
You know what's funny?
ever meet.
Not to bring up this specific person, but I keep still seeing her, man. I was watching the news the other day in the hotel, and I couldn't really tell what it was about, but there's Britney Spears' face again right there. I'm like, man, this chick can't cut a break. Always fucking with her, man. Leave her alone. She's got a nice, pretty vagina. I seen it.
I think she's actually a decent songwriter when she actually got the chance to write.
I mean, but you ask yourself, like, did she really write a lot of that stuff? Like,
Her early stuff, absolutely not. I mean, that's why Hit Me Baby One More Time sounds more like a call for domestic violence awareness than it does.
That one was
Written by a Swedish man who didn't know
yeah.
the terminology.
It was lost in translation.
Yeah.
But Like that one song she did there where she's in the bathtub crying. I guess now it's about Justin Timberlake's baby that she had aborted every time or something.
God, imagine that.
And
if that
Toxic.
would've-
I mean, you hear the local H version from Alive 05.
That was one she.
Yeah, but that's what I mean.
That's
You
a
wonder,
good
like,
song.
did she write some of those, or did her fucking father have his hand in?
Being
like,
a songwriter, I can tell you that she probably had the kernel, but she didn't
Fully
pop the
finish it.
popcorn by herself. No one ever does.
If anything, the whole situation she was stuck in, she just.
Unless you're Prince.
Yeah, she did what she was
Or
good
Brian
at,
Wilson.
and just everyone else leached off of her and took advantage of it. They used her as a workhorse, essentially.
that's two good people that you just mentioned too, right there.
No, I'm good like that.
Brian Wilson, he's awesome, man.
That- you know,
people
I was
don't
actually
know who
thinking
that
of this
is.
the other
That's one of the Beach Boys.
The
The right.
without him, there would be
Him and the Wrecking Crew, actually, because a lot of those early, really good records, those aren't the Beach Boys playing, that's the Wrecking Crew.
Right.
Actually, most of the surf rock you hear, if it's not Dick Dale or the Ventures, most of the time it's the Wrecking Crew. They went under the Atlantics. What else were they?
I used to listen to Jan and Dean, which was my stepfather's music.
I have their album.
It's
Baby
awesome.
Talk.
Yep, that's an awesome album, man. It's a good one to drive to if you're taking a long drive.
Yeah. They were good friends with the Beach Boys, Brian Wilson. They grew up with the
Yep.
Wilson
Yeah,
family. And I was thinking the other day,
Brian
one
Wilson was
collaboration
everywhere, man.
throughout history that I thought would have happened by now that actually hasn't happened and could still happen because both of them are still alive is Brian Wilson and Paul McCartney getting together and writing something.
That would be pretty
Yeah.
fucking cool.
Or Roger Waters too.
I mean, you could bring Ringo in, but you know.
Roger Waters nowadays, his music is. They were so ahead of their time, man. Like when it came to taking the drugs and doing the music and letting the music come from.
You ever heard their song "See Emily Play"? It's their first single they ever had.
I want to say yes, just because I had a roommate who was like huge.
That was when they had their creative force, their real creative force.
Yeah.
Sid Barrett, he actually ended up in a mental institution. And Roger Waters, in my opinion,
Wait, are we talking
stole
about Pink
the
Floyd?
band
Yes.
from him.
Okay, I thought so. I just had a brain fart.
But yeah, without Sid, yeah, Roger pretty much kept him coherent when it came to the music, but
Right, as coherent as possible.
he was much better.
Who do you think was better at it though, him or Jim Morrison playing on drugs?
Oh,
I mean,
easily Waters.
Morrison
or
was a poet.
Barrett.
To me, he was an amazing poet. When I heard his music, for some reason, like, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, but it always just played to me in poetry form. And then when I saw the first album, when they literally like posted a lot of like where the songs came from, and they were from his his poems that he wrote. And I actually you know that the records are coming back, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, vinyl's been making.
I'm
a
thinking
return for the
about,
last, 5 years.
I'm thinking about grabbing one for the studio and maybe just
Seems like vinyl's been making a comeback for the past 37 years.
right. Absolutely though.
I used to collect it.
Yeah, no, it's enough to the point now you can even find the vinyl section at Walmart.
Yep. And it's pretty extensive actually now. I mean they used to
Yeah,
have
it's
only
surprising.
like 6 to 9 records, but now they've got a lot up there that they redid.
A lot of-
I mean they even had Notorious B.I.G.'s
Yep, a lot of people are
Um,
reissuing their stuff and getting it pressed on vinyl. New
Ready to Die was on there, yeah. That's what it
new
was.
albums and shit are getting pressed on vinyl.
Yeah, I'm gonna get one of those record players, man. That it also has a Bluetooth on it, so
I don't know. Some of the records I've seen, some of the new records I've seen, I don't know if I'd actually.
Yeah, I
play
think
'em.
they're more meant for collectors.
Yeah,
items.
some of them have designs.
They're not made that well.
I used to be a collector of things, but I stopped doing that just because, and I'm by far, am I a conspiracy
But
theorist?
that's the thing with collector's items. Once something's made as a collector's item, it no longer becomes collectible.
Right, that's what I mean. Like, why save something then? Like,
From my years of watching American
It's
Pictures,
just
if I've
gonna
heard
get
anything,
destroyed,
You
like-
sift out of the trash to find the good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, like you've told me, a lot of times it's normally the packaging it comes in that ends up
Yeah,
becoming
the stuff
valuable.
that's supposed to get thrown away. Like
when we get invaded and everybody dies, what's your collection gonna do for you? That's what I'm saying.
mine
you know,
could
like,
do a lot because
Yes.
it's like 85% wood, and you can do a lot with wood.
Use the cases to burn.
I have chairs. I have little nuts made into bugs. I have. Christ, I have a Macy's box from the 1860s. Wait, no, it's the 1880s.
No, I'm talking about your records
It's like a
though. What are your record collection gonna
I
do
don't
for
have a
you
record
when we?
collection. I already went digital with everything. If it wasn't a collector's item, like if it wasn't something that I went out of my way to find or I had to track down with
Collect
my ever-loving
guns.
soul.
Collect guns and food.
I've got a few, but nothing lethal.
I've actually got a couple of those
Not allowed
Patriot
to.
packs that you see on TV with the food's good for 25 years. And my mom wants a couple too. I'm gonna order her some just because she keeps saying she don't want to buy it for no reason. I'm like, well, it's not really for no reason, Mom. It's 25 years. I'm like, I hope you live another 25 years, but I doubt it. You know, like. So I don't know. You don't want to buy too much, and then you're just buying food for
Other
nothing.
people.
Right. Someone hopefully will find it. But I got a couple up there. I think I got
Yeah.
Chili Mac.
Actually, my plan for the end of the world. I'm not stockpiling anything because everyone.
I before I found out I was sick, I used to be a prepper. I'm not so much anymore. I mean, I do like my guns, but
No, I just have a plan.
my
Because
plan
the
is just
plan
to shoot
leads to
whatever's
stuff.
not my friend.
Because people have things stacked up, piled up.
I'll have plenty
It's
of
easier to
weed
take it than to pile it yourself.
and plenty of protection. What else? I should have, enough food for a few months. And I found my hidden stash of tea, so I'll be good.
Ever vital bag of tea.
Shit, you really want to prep. The government's selling old missile silos for like 40,000 a pop.
You know
Yeah,
what?
they are.
But they know where they are.
Still a fat lot of luck them getting down there to you. It's like a quarter mile down.
Right? Right? Yeah, right? Like, what the, yeah.
You could set up a
Not
whole
a
bunch of
fucking
booby
rock
traps,
climber.
like little mouse traps with shells attached to them so that people trip the wire.
Yeah, they
I
know
should-
where they're at.
should
You
I say
remind
that
me
sort
of
of
my
stuff?
friend Lethal, man. He reminds me of Lethal.
I shouldn't say
Just
that.
the way that you talk, like you're.
Oh, that wasn't me talking. That was my old stepfather. He served in Vietnam as a Navy SEAL. He taught me how
My
to
father
build
as well.
booby traps.
He was in.
And plus, my adopted grandfather fought in the ARVN. He's actually Vietnamese.
My stepfather drove trucks. He drove the missiles and the bullets back and forth, the ammunition back and forth to.
We had a very Lieutenant Dan tradition in my family that was broken by my father. We had every member of our family has actually served in a war, but they all came back, and some of them volunteered early. Like my grandfather went over to kill Nazis back in '39. He volunteered to go over and fight for the British Army. He went up to Canada, joined
That was Gypsy, by
the
the way.
Canadian. I think it was the Expeditionary Force.
You're right,
And
Gypsy.
so,
And Canada is still a protectorate of England, so whenever England gets in some shit, Canada, here comes Canada.
hey, that's Canada.
I like Canada.
I love Canada. It's beautiful over there.
It is. I just hate what they did to Niagara Falls.
As far
That's the irony. When it comes to sacred, like Native American sites in this country, the Americans are usually the ones who get it wrong. But in this case, the Americans got it right because they protected Niagara Falls as it's a national park and a preserve, so you can't do anything, you can't develop it or anything. But on Canada's side, you can. I actually have a picture hanging on my wall of the falls with both Canada and the American side, and Canada's got like a huge sky tower, huge hotel right there, right on the
Yeah.
falls and everything. And the American side is still pristine, like
There's
it
a
should
whole,
be.
yeah. Is it just me, or is the Niagara Falls
Well-
overwhelming? Like when I go, I love it. It's beautiful, but it's like it's you can feel the energy coming from it. You know what I mean? Like it's just kind of. The last time I went, I mean, I was a little bit younger then, but
You,
it
well,
was
yeah,
just
you're
overwhelming. Like
my age. You remember the
see
real
and-
cold year we had in '94?
I was still here then. Yeah.
I was in the Boy Scouts, and we had to go do this thing called the polar bear thing. It's basically like the Winter Olympics
Polar
for the
bear
Boy
swim?
Scouts.
Yep.
And we went up to the Adirondacks, and on our way, like jimmying through everything, we stopped at Niagara Falls, and seeing it frozen is something else. Not the whole thing frozen, but you know what I mean. With
Yeah,
just there's ice shards hanging over that are like probably a couple 100 feet long. And they get broken off when the current,
Hits it too hard.
Yeah, and you just hear crashing. It's so the sounds, you can almost hear like chimes if you're in the right spot.
Oh shit. That would be something else to see.
I would like to see the eternal flame in the wintertime up
That would be
near
pretty
Buffalo.
cool.
It's another sacred Iroquois site. It's a flame that's been burning for hundreds of years. We can only, I guess you can say, you can only guess to how long, but if you actually listen to the Native Americans, they tell you how long it's been burning, as long as they've been here. So
Did I show you this
a few
picture?
thousand years. And it actually has a waterfall falling on it. They've
You know
had
who that is?
geologists,
He looks familiar.
You know who that
people like
is?
that.
I can't put my.
Oh yeah, Tracy Morgan.
Saturday Night Live. What was the
30
movies
Rock?
he was in?
Yeah.
30 Rock. Yeah.
Saturday Night Live.
I-
a whole bunch of-
We were at that thing
No,
in New Jersey at that
I
mall
know the
this
face.
past
He
weekend.
was in that one really bad Kevin Smith cop movie, I believe, with Bruce Willis.
Oh yes.
It's one of the only bad Kevin Smith movies.
I know what you're talking about too.
But even Kevin Smith says it's a terrible movie, so.
It was just crazy though. I was just walking through and there was this line, and I just kind of walked by and I looked, and familiarity was in my mind. I'm like, that dude looked familiar to me. I kind of went back and did a double take, and he looked up at me, and I go, oh shit, like that. And I go, can I get a picture, bro? And I went to go, he was like, yeah. And I went to go put my arm around him, and I looked behind me, and I completely budged in line in front of everybody. Nobody said a word, but it just happened so quick. Like I had my hand was already on my phone, so I just had to click up the phone or the camera part, and it was like
Just quick
10
snap
seconds,
it
the
out.
whole thing.
So wild.
I was like, shit, Tracy Morgan, there he is. No
What's
shit.
going on?
Him being in his mobile cart there must have been shortly after his accident.
Right.
And I would
No.
I would've
This was
cheered
this
him up.
past weekend.
Oh, really?
Like 3 days ago.
It must be. I would have been like, Gary!
I
He's like, what?
was gonna send a picture
You don't
to
care,
my
come
to my son's mother, but
Okay, that's.
she would be like, "Who the fuck is that black dude?"
He's the only one that I could see ever, like if they did a reboot or something like that, he could do that part very well.
We're at a half hour right now. Yeah, we can do it for 5.
Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Steve here from Treetop Landscaping. We offer yard work, general labor, and heavy moving. Anything you need, Treetop Landscaping can help. For questions or estimates, call 607-259-2043.
Raccooning. I don't want to.
Yeah, fair enough. It is rolling, so.
All right, welcome back. We still haven't really talked about any history. We're talking about music, so some music history, I guess.
Yeah.
That's what I'm a roller coaster.
We
guy.
were talking about Eldridge Park. I remember actually going on the roller coaster a couple times. I remember actually getting stuck one time too. I was pretty young. And then I remember they tried to reopen Eldridge Park again in the Had to have been late 80s, early 90s, because they had a go-kart track in there, I remember that. And then they had a train that went around the whole.
My Little League team, our playoffs were played in it's now the softball field.
Yeah.
And when we were done, we were paid in cases of soda to help break down one of the rides. I can't remember which one it was. It was a tracked ride, I know that. It wasn't the roller coaster, though, but it was one of the tracked rides. It was where the train is now, the little train ride thing. I think it's a train.
Yeah, that's where the go-kart track used to be, over in that area, so that's probably what it was, like the track, because I remember before they built that railroad track there, they still had the lines on from the go-kart track.
If you want some good history about Eldridge Park, most of the buildings that are there are actually built from the wood from the casino after the casino burned down.
I did not know that.
Wasn't it like a 3-story?
5-story.
I did know there was a casino there. I remember seeing pictures.
And there's a
I'd
statue.
love actually to look back and see like what Elmira used to look like when it was,
I
back
can
in the
show you.
40s and 30s and
Memorable
It was beautiful.
shot for me. One of my mom's friends took it. It's not super ancient history, but they just recently tore down the bar. That's why I brought it up to me. There was a bar on, I believe it's 2nd Street, over by where the Steel is, and there's a nice picture of Bobby Kennedy riding in a car, waving at people when he was running for president in '68. When he stopped in here, that's what a lot of people mourn about this area, is that we used to be incredibly important. But what they don't understand is we still could be.
Yeah,
We live in the middle of two very big opportunities that we're not cashing in on. We've got Corning and we've got Ithaca. Ithaca has Cornell, which is an Ivy League school. Corning has aeronautics and space
And also,
contracts, and
Corning's become a SUNY college, which is an Ivy League school
I mean,
as well.
Elmira College is an Ivy League
Yep.
college, but Elmira College just seems to be intent on wiping everything that brings Elmira together away, in my opinion. They like to tear down the poorest neighborhoods to build more stuff that they don't need. They tore down Patty's Pub. Patty's Pub was a historic bar where they used to have a pig that ran around in the 1800s and everything. You used to just run loose around town and people would just, feed
is
it,
that the
do
one
whatever.
that's over off of Pennsylvania Avenue, or not Pennsylvania Avenue? That one that street that runs
It's
parallel to it.
Main, it's a parking lot now of all things. It's on the corner. It's on Main Street. But yeah, it's Patty's Pub. I actually thought that place was protected and they couldn't tear it down when they tore it down, but they tore it down just to build parking space for more people from Vermont
Jesus Christ.
or Connecticut, because none of the people who go to Elmira College are from here.
Right.
And if they are, they had to work their ass off to get there because tuition is so expensive.
I know where you're talking
I
about
went
now.
there for a little while, but I had to work there. I re-waxed Tompkins Hall's floors. I had to work my ass off to get the discount to even be able to afford to go there.
Only time I ever went there was during my bouncer days when
But
it
any
was
place now is
Zamboni's.
Oh,
We
Zamboni's.
used to go to
I remember Zamboni's.
the after hours parties that were at the college. Zamboni's was rough, dude. People don't understand that.
No, I understand.
I mean, the only people that really understand are other people in
Like, I
other
remember
cities
Chuck
that have
Clark's.
hockey bars, because these motherfuckers would go in there not to drink, but to fight. They only wanted to fight after they drank.
Yeah, the bonus was they could get a drink with their fight.
Oh, yeah, you remember
And
Chuck
they didn't
Clark's.
want to fight us, but of course we had to break them up and kick them out, which, I mean, the only thing worse than that, dude, was breaking up the girl fights.
Oh, yeah.
Because you had to pull their fucking hands out of each other's hair. You couldn't pick them up a certain way. You couldn't put your hands around their breasts or near their breast. It was rough. That was rough. But, I mean, them hockey fights, dude, them hockey players don't play around. They fight until they cannot get up anymore.
I remember my best friend Mikey broke his nose. This isn't at the same place, but it's reminded me of the old places around here. The original Haunt used to have this huge pole in the center, and people would start slamming around and moshing around, just throwing people into it. I always thought, put a pad, something like, that, some foam insulation or something around that damn thing, but they never did. And Chuck Clark's, do you remember Chuck Clark's?
I do. I remember going there when it was, I was in my teens, younger
I saw
teens.
the Queers there.
And
back
they
in,
used to,
1997.
it was Wednesdays, used to be called Over the Hump on Wednesdays. And on Wednesdays, you go down early to Chuck Clark's, and all you had to do was buy a drink, and they had like a chicken wing buffet. And like, my family's always been huge on chicken wings, so that was a weekly thing. We went down there every Wednesday.
Bernie Murray's has the best still.
I agree, man. Some people fucking disagree with me, but
Bernie Murray's is the best.
my brother thinks the Elbow Room, and I haven't had theirs in a while, just because the last time I got them, they were so salty.
That's usually what I hear. It's either one of the two places that people say is the best. I haven't had either yet, so.
Bernie Murray's is
I
definitely the
I'm
best.
not a big chicken wing person.
Oh,
so
I could eat chicken wings and ice cream every day.
Oh yeah.
I did eat chicken wings today, actually. Pudgies.
I ate ice cream today.
yeah.
Superhero.
Hey. I like that one too.
Well, it's this new Hudsonville one. They had this Blue Moon ice cream I had to try, see if it tasted like the actual Perry's kind, which I'm still trying to figure out if Desiree's related to the people who own Perry's.
I don't know.
That's a little bit of local history if you'd like to know that. My niece that I'm actually blood related to, the one he's with, her great grandfather or great grand uncle, something like that, is Admiral Perry, the guy who made it to the North Pole first. He left from Elmira.
Oh,
Right across the street from City Hall, there's a big granite stone with a placard on it, and that's where he left from. And it describes the day he left. And
Do
why he
you
left
know
there.
all of the people that are on the picture when you get
Into Elmira?
into Elmira?
Yes, I do.
There's one, and I can't think right now. There's one on there that I do not know.
Describe
I know
it, I can
everyone
probably
else. I'm sure it'll be on
Because
here
you got,
somewhere.
if I can do it from memory, you got
I
Ernie
know
Davis,
Mark
you
Twain.
got
I
Mark
know
Twain,
Eileen
which,
Collins. I know
on the Mark Twain front, I know this is a sore thing for people around here to hear, but it is the God's honest truth. I didn't disinter the body or anything to make sure, but I have it on good authority. Mark Twain is not buried in Woodlawn Cemetery. He's buried in Connecticut, unless they drew and quartered him. No, I guess they wouldn't have to draw him after he's dead. You just have to kind of splay him out.
Yeah.
And quarter him and send it off. But then, he's only really been in 3 places that he loved, so they cut him in.
Yeah, he's not from here, right?
He's from
His
Hannibal,
wife is from
Mississippi.
here.
Yeah, he married his wife here, introduced by his friend who he met on the river when he was doing the riverboat stuff with his brother back in Hannibal, Mississippi, when he was born under the legal name of Samuel Clemens.
I mean, the Chemung River used to be a lot higher too, didn't it?
It's not that it was higher. It's just those big, huge concrete walls you see there, the flood walls, were a lot lower. So it made it appear as if it was.
Because then
Plus,
they
we
used
use a
to
lot of
use
water
it.
here, and so the water levels have dropped. Do you remember 1991 when we got that huge downpour? We thought it was going to flood again, and it actually almost crested over the flood wall. It was like 2 feet shy of cresting.
Yeah, I
over
do
the flood
remember
wall.
that. I remember actually going
I lived at 513 Catherine
with
Street.
a video
That's
camera and watching a whole fucking tree just float down the river.
Oh yeah, fun story. If you go over Walnut Street Bridge and you look out where there's no more bridges heading towards Corning, in that sort of area, the beaver hut they have sitting out there, it's actually a cap. It's a beaver hut, but what sits way below that, I'm sure it's collapsed by now, is one of the houses that was disinterred and moved into the river during the flood of 72.
Oh shit.
Shit.
I believe it's the actual house that took out the Walnut Street Bridge that they had to replace with the bridge that's there now, because we used to have, I can't remember the actual style of the bridge, but it was one of those cast iron that had the steel beams that went in X shape going across it.
Oh, okay, yeah, I don't remember that. It was.
It was in 72. It was when we had our big hit single from this area. It sprinkled, it rained, and it poured, generating thousands
Nobody
of dollars
died.
for hurricane relief. Yes, and nobody died, apparently. even though I have it on good account from
I remember going
my
into
family,
the
seeing people floating. They said they were already dead, that they had floated up out of the cemetery. Or, but I was thinking to myself, St. Joseph's Hospital is right there, like less than 100 yards from the river, and there's people there that are on life support and everything. And I'm sure they got those people out
They just
first, but there's
lost
some
someone.
people they couldn't, And
Yeah, they said the death toll was 0.
yeah, they said miraculously, although Elmira was the most damaged in this area, nobody died. Although people in higher elevation areas where it didn't hit as
There was
hard
a death toll
died.
for Corning,
Like hard.
but there wasn't
died.
one for here.
There was a couple firefighters who died. They actually found one of them up in a tree after it was all over, and it didn't even get that bad in their area. But yet, nobody here died. And we were warned late in the middle of the night, but yet nobody died. It's not a cover-up. It's not a conspiracy. It's part of the big, in my part, lie, what happened here in 73 afterwards. We had just gotten rid of our probably most popular mayor we ever had, Joseph Lagonegro, and he was really good. He was essentially like the Kennedy of Elmira, the John Kennedy of Elmira. He was young. I mean, they named a school after him, and that's now the Corning Community College. That's in Elmira. Which, on a side note, why is there no Elmira Community College? Why do we have to import one from Corning?
Yeah, I know, right?
And that's another thing, Elmira College could
They
help
used to have Elmira
subsidize
Business
that.
Institute back in the
Yeah,
day.
Yeah,
I think that's still open.
I think it's still open. It's considered one of the oldest colleges in the area.
Isn't that the
However,
one
it's
that's in
not an
Langdon
accredited
Plaza?
colleges, and none of their credits are transferable. I only knew that because I had an option to take a business mathematics course there, but when I learned the credits were non-transferable to another college, I declined.
Seems dumb.
And well, it's what that place is. It's a brick and mortar online college. It's like a Phoenix University that's brick and mortar.
Oh yeah.
And EBI
think a lot of
has
them
been
turned
around
into
since
that,
like
though.
the 1850s. Back in the day, like back when it first started in the 1850s, 60s, it actually did what it said it did. It trained women, because back then it was an all women school, and it trained women to do quote unquote womanly services, secretarial work, nurses, whatever was needed. But then after time, it just became about survival, the way it is with any business.
Times change.
You take the
every
money
day.
and you figure out how to keep yourself alive.
Yeah.
So I remember, this kind of brings us back to Eldridge Park.
Oh.
When I was a kid, I mean, obviously this is not true, but they used to say, I don't know if you remember it, that
Oh, the Lady of the Lake?
no, that Eldridge Park was bottomless.
Oh, yeah, the Lady of the Lake that lives in the bottom of the endless,
Yeah.
the bottomless lake.
Yeah.
Actually, on that note, I also do not know if this is 100% true, but I have it on my father's authority, and my father never told me a lie until he told me he'd be right back. And he said that they actually sent some divers down, I think in the late 70s or 80s, when they were dredging it or doing something to it. And they found that it's actually like 50 or 60 feet deep. But there is a small little tunnel, I guess you could say, that does connect it to Seneca Lake
Oh shit.
in a weird fashion.
Yeah,
Because there's actually a
that's
second lake there. That bird preserve that's over there across the street from Eldridge Park is itself a lake, and I cannot remember the name of it. But it uses that, since that's below sea level, and it's like this underground chain that connects all the way to Seneca Lake. So technically the water that we see here in our ponds comes from Seneca Lake.
Oh shit.
Except for Brick Pond. Brick Pond is aptly named because that was where they quarried for all the brick back in the day, and they struck the water table.
So
And it
that's
flooded.
just a.
And they called it Brick
quarry.
Pond because if you go at the bottom of it, there's a ton of bricks stacked up in the bottom of it because they had to abandon it in the middle of work. A lot of those bricks were used to build the Elmira Iron Works factory, which was devastated by the 2012 tornado that we had.
Now, how do you feel about the? This actually may have something to do with me. My uncle always told me I should check it out. I know you heard about the story about Southside High School being built on top of.
Oh, I was there for it.
Yeah.
Well, didn't actually graduate until 2002, but I went there from 1996 to 1998.
And that's when
I got out
graduated,
early.
was 96. So.
I got out early. Yeah, we talked about this before. I was a freshman when you were a senior.
Oh, yeah.
We might have actually ran into each other on occasion. I was the little dude, starting school, high school when you're 12. 13 actually, because my birthday's in November, so I didn't turn 14 yet, so I was a little dude. But anyway, what that is when they were constructing that place after they felt that the original Southside High School, which is now the DMV and Social Services
I just
building.
spent half
That
my
was
day
our
there
high school.
today.
That was the original
That was the
Southside High
original.
School.
That's
yes.
where my parents.
That was
Oh,
Southside
shit.
High School from, I believe, 1921 until
That's where my
1983.
parents went to school.
Oh shit! I
The
didn't
first
know that.
graduating class of the new Southside High School, which is now the Elmira High School, was 1984. But that's built on the old parcel land that
American
was from a factory
LaFrance.
of American LaFrance in Remington Ran.
Yep.
American LaFrance owned it, operated it during the early 1900s, building fire trucks and whatnot and fire equipment. And then during World War II, they leased it to Remington Rand so they could build rifles and ammunitions for the military. And that's where the contamination comes in, because in order to, I'm sure you guys know this, in order to make bullets, you need saltpeter and you need other stuff. And in order to get that, you need a hell of a lot of ammonia and other vile chemicals that once you're used, or it's like dirty, they've all been used, they need to put them somewhere. And back then, we'll just put them in the ground. It's right over here, there's a vacant lot, just throw them in the goddamn ground. So they built it on top of that, and they were actually excavating those. When I went to school there, it actually started the year after you left in 1997. You were not allowed to use the showers in the athletic area.
Or the drinking fountains.
You couldn't use the drinking fountains. You could swim in the pool, but you remember how chlorinated that thing smelled?
I don't, because
It would burn
here's
your
what happened.
damn
Here's my
eyes.
story. I went there from 92 to 96. I have, I don't want to go too far into it, but I have a disease that I got, I'm only 45 years old and I shouldn't have. And I personally believe that it's linked to that because I was into sports. I spent a lot of time in the pool. I spent a lot of time.
The cancer.
I literally lived over the tracks.
Oh, I know where you
3
mean.
houses from the tracks to walk over
On
to
Erie.
the school. Erie was at the end. I lived on Morrow,
Oh, yeah.
and then Willie's was the other street.
My buddy Eric.
For years, I lived there. And me and my friend Scott, who also lived on that street for years, would hang around back behind the tracks and shit where
Where the
Miller's
grocery
Pond
store-
ended.
Oh, yeah.
No, the other
The
side.
other side, the other end. Yeah.
Where Morrow Street ended. That was the last street at the end of Erie. Like, it ended right there.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was all this like forest land back there, and I want to say NYSEG had a electric
They still do.
something back there as
I
well.
believe they do still have
But
electric out
my
there.
friend and I, we used to spend days and hours back there, like doing dumb shit, that kids do when
That's
you're,
what you do
know,
around here. Especially back then. The grand pool. Oh my
fucking
God,
around with the
skating in
dirt
grand
and shit.
pool.
But I'm almost positive, bro, that because I think that part of my illness is because of that shit.
Oh, it probably is. I personally have several friends, including myself, who have actually had cancer, and almost all of us can pretty much say it came from there. It's not the same type of cancer. My friend Jasmine.
Right,
has
they're finding an
breast
excuse
cancer.
to
I
why
had
it's not affecting
melanoma.
people, but it affected a lot of the
it
same
also
people
affects
that I
people in
knew
different
too.
ways.
A lot of the people that I played sports with and spent a lot of time with on that section of the school.
They get breathing
And those
disorders.
people either died or they've just got shit wrong with them or
But it's like odd, obscure.
like
shit.
I mean
Yeah, like my one friend, I'm not gonna bring up his name because he actually wears a prosthesis and he's more shut away from society than I am because of it. But his face is essentially melting off. He just lost his nose last year. He had to have a prosthesis put back on, and he's pretty sure he got it from there because there's nothing of that in his family or anything.
Right.
And he was a special needs student back then, and as you know, with special needs students, I don't
Is his
know.
name Chris?
No.
Okay.
No.
I knew a kid.
His
that-
first name was Matt.
Okay.
And he was down the hall because you know where ISS was and everything like that. That's where they kept the special kids. They'd keep them way far down near the auditorium and stuff for some odd reason. But they didn't
Because
have
they're special.
Yeah, they didn't have control. The only thing I saw special about Southside when I went there was they had a goddamn elevator.
That's because I can tell you. This is what I can tell you why on that. A few years
And they had a third
ahead
floor.
of time, a good friend of mine, Bruce, his sister used to go there, and she had some kind of liver issues or something. She was actually the first person, I think, in Elmira to get a liver transplant or a living liver transplant or something. She was the first something. But she was only like this tall, and she couldn't walk up the steps. So they built that elevator, I think, for her. That's why they had the elevator in there. And then they
It's a
used
good
to
thing.
use it
I mean,
to...
it's a good thing.
For,
All the kids used
there
to
was
use
another
it.
kid that was behind us who was in a wheelchair, so...
We had
I
a
wanna
blind
say
girl
that.
named Tasha. She used it all the time instead of having to go up the stairs. Because for some reason, those stairs were built very like, I would say angled, but I'm going to say angered. Because they were aggressive steps. I didn't fall, and I would slip all the time on those things. Or even, the like Greek steps they had out in the
ones
lunch
that go
cafeteria.
around. Yeah.
Those huge, monolithic blocks that were like 4 foot tall, and they're like, how do you
where we
expect
would
us to
smoke
walk up
cigarettes
that? Yeah, me too. We used to smoke in the back of an 83 AMC Gremlin. Yeah, showing my age there.
Wayne's World.
That was,
I just saw that the other day. Was this he had a gremlin?
I don't remember who's car.
Wasn't that a gremlin? The blue?
Oh yeah, that was Gremlin in the movie. I was trying to remember who's. It was Matt. No, it was Mike. No, it was Gothier. It was one of the Gothier brothers' cars. I can't remember who the fuck's car it was. One of the two. I don't know. My memory's terrible.
My mom used to have a Pinto.
We had a Pacer, an AMC Pacer with like the dome window. It was bird shit yellow.
My mom and stepfather had a fucking station wagon. It was orange and black, like perfect during Halloween time. But any other time it looked kind of strange. And it had one of those big ass 18-wheeler horns on it, the air horns on it. Yeah, that thing was badass.
Speaking of things that are bird shit yellow, this area actually invented yellow mustard. Well, we didn't invent it, but we mass-produced it for the first time into what it is today.
Doesn't a lot of
where
the...
Brand Park is, that used to be all mustard fields.
That explains a lot, because it still does have a...
Lot of mustard over there.
And it was owned by the French family, and they crafted their mustard right on Lake Street called French's Yellow Mustard.
I did not know
I believe
that.
people still
That's
hear of it
the
today.
mustard.
That's what I mean by
You know what? I was
the
looking up
mustard.
that picture so I could figure out who that other
Oh
person
yeah, the other
was.
person you were asking.
Oh, and
Yeah.
another cool thing about Brand Park, besides this badass pool that needed $3 million to be restored, so
Dude,
they're
I
gonna tear it
remember
down.
that thing, going to that thing every day as a
Swimming
kid.
in it, skating in it
Because at
during
that
the winter
time, I went to Riverside School. That was my
I
school. I
went
lived
to
on
this.
Riverside Ave, actually, for a little while and as a kid.
I think it was the Black Crane or the Black Swan, the last reported sighting of it. There's a statue over there in Brand Park. That's what that statue means. It's the last sighting of that bird in human history.
Oh,
We also have very steep aviation heritage here. Our gliding is second to none. The Wright brothers ain't got shit on us. And Curtis was the
I'm
man.
Curtis.
They sued him. They tried suing him all throughout their lives to try to get him to stop, and he just wouldn't. Because he was right.
Fuck you.
He was better than them. They were bicycle repairmen from Ohio. He's Glenn Curtis. I mean,
Exactly.
he's a glider pilot.
He was the world's
he's an
fastest man,
engineer.
for
He's
Christ's
yeah,
sake.
world's fastest man. Motorcycle. I'm sorry, it may be local bias, but he's the father of aviation to me. The Wright
Didn't that have
brothers.
something to do with the Spirit of St. Louis?
All right.
I mean, without Curtis, the Wright brothers shit would have lasted probably 10 years.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't get it down properly. He's the one who figured out yaw and everything like that when it came to controlling the damn thing. He's the one who put what they call
It won't let me make it bigger.
what the hell are they? God damn it! Here I am with my ailerons.
That's Ernie Davis.
He
That's
invented the
Mark
goddamn
Twain.
aileron,
That's
for Christ's
Eileen
sake.
Collins. That's Tommy Hilfiger.
Oh, Tommy Hilfiger. I had a pair of Converse shoes, felt ones that were signed by him. They were given to me
That
by
was
his
like
friend.
Frederick Douglass, but I didn't know he had anything to do with it.
Tommy's a good guy. His
Who-
brother
who's the-
Andy is
that guy in
crazy
the
as hell.
background?
I played many a
There's
show
the guy
with Andy.
I'm working
Okay.
on the garbage route that
We've
went
got
to school with Tommy
Hilfiger,
punched him in the
Eileen
face.
Collins, Mark Twain.
Yep.
That's Ernie Davis, Hal Roach.
Hal Roach is the guy sitting in the front, right?
Yep, that's Hal Roach.
Who's
And we
the
got
one in the
Brian
back?
Williams, and then we got that is Mr. Jones. You don't know Mr.
The
Jones?
sports guy you were telling me about?
Oh yeah, Brian Williams, the guy who lied about being in a firefight and lost his job and career at NBC. He was only born here. He was raised in New York City.
Yeah.
He comes back he used to come back before he was shamed every year to do the.
That's who I
commencement.
didn't know who it was. Maybe I just don't watch enough news. That's the Brian Williams.
I want to say his name was actually Jim Jones, but I don't want to confuse him with the psychopath in the 70s.
Oh, the Jones that
Mr.
also
Jones,
was involved
Underground
in
Railroad.
football.
That's why I called him Mr. Jones, because I didn't
Mr.
want to
Jones.
confuse him. He was part of the Underground Railroad. He took care of the Southern prisoners that we had in our concentration camp. He would give them dignified burials.
Isn't
John
that
Jones,
those,
sorry, John Jones, not John Jones.
Isn't that what that one cemetery over in Elmira
Is
is?
he related
Woodlawn,
to
yeah, he
Mike
was the curator.
Jones?
He was the curator of Woodlawn Cemetery from its inception until his death. His house is actually a nationally historical protected
no,
site.
not
They
that
moved
John
it to its
Jones.
original place, it's just right across the street from Woodlawn Cemetery now.
John W. Jones?
Yes,
Oh, that's that has that little
Underground Railroad.
Oh, okay, now I know
a
it.
little
that
hut house across from Woodlawn Cemetery with his little garden there. Yep,
When I
that's
put in
where
John
it
Jones,
was.
it brought up John Jones the fighter.
Yeah, no, he
Which
curated
he's
the
also
cemetery.
from this area, Vestal.
And people may not know this, but my last name is Foster. I'm very sorry to anybody from the South listening who have folks who died 160 years ago at our pond. We were just trying to help. We're not
that's
responsible for the highest death rate outside of the Nazis inside of an internment camp. We very much do not want to be associated with that. We gave the mayor our house, for Christ's sake.
I don't think he knows about that.
Oh, Foster's Pond?
The
During
internment camp that used to be out here?
Helmira, the internment camp during the Civil War, when we killed 3,000 prisoners of war from malnutrition and dysentery. I'm going to say 10% of it was their own fault. They shouldn't have pissed in the water they were drinking in. I mean, seems like common sense. But, hey. Anyway, my family, the Foster family, we were kind of a predominant family with the Roricks, who I'm also related to. It's my grandmother's maiden name on my mom's side. We owned pretty much all of West Elmira between those two families. And during the internment, we offered up our pond, Foster's Pond, which still exists to this day, as a place for the soldiers to drink and get fresh water because everything was in short supply there. Because the camp was only built for a few hundred people, and they ended up having close to 4,000 to 5,000 people there. And it only lasted for 1 year, which over 3,000 people died, which is the highest death rate on this side of the conflict. Outside, the Southern has Andersonville to answer for, but that's a whole nother discussion. But yeah, John Foster served in the Union Army, and he donated whatever he could to try to help, and the family was pretty devastated by it. His brother ended up becoming destitute, living at the Alms House in Breesport when it was constructed. He's basically a crazy homeless guy until his death. It's rumored he was beaten to death there, but that's what they did to people back then. And then some more local history from my mom's side of the family, the Roricks. They had an amphitheater built out in Golden Glow called Rorick's Glen.
I know where that is.
Yeah, jazz musicians used to come out back in the day. Vaudeville acts would come out. I actually believe that George Burns and his wife came out to do some performances. I know that Josephine Baker was supposed to perform there, but she was protested on because they didn't want to have a strong, independent black woman bearing her all during the banana dance, which I can't understand. She's the most beautiful woman in the history of the world. But Josephine Baker,
I don't know. That sounds familiar, but I don't.
American-born dancer and actress, moved to France because you'd get a better crack there back in the day. They weren't, racist.
Yeah.
Although, France is pretty highly racist nowadays.
Ooh, you know what? I had somebody talk about the other day
But,
that it's another music tribute or a music history thing.
But the Glen is
What is
nationally
the
known.
real story of Cat
Second to the Hollywood Bowl.
Stevens? What is the real story on Cat Stevens?
Oh, you mean Seuss Jeff, what the hell is his name now?
Is he still not allowed to come to the United States?
Oh, no, he is. He was just here a few years ago. He was in Washington, D.C., actually. If he wasn't allowed to be in this country, our government's not doing a good job because, what was it, back in 2007, 8, or 9? I know I was still with Ashley, so it was before 2010, when Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert had their rally to restore sanity in Washington, D.C. He performed Night Train because they immediately followed it with Ozzy Osbourne doing Crazy Train.
I just heard somebody talking about that the other day, and I'm like, man, I've heard some things about that, but I don't really know the whole true story of it, so...
Yeah, I don't really know anything about it. All I know is that the man seems to think he found something, and, hey. I had, like Red Foreman said in that one episode of that 70s show, me and God had a nice heart-to-heart. I wasn't on a beach in Iwo Jima, but I was on the side of the road at 2 a.m. Me and God had a good conversation. We're good. I mean, when you're picking someone's brains out of your shoelaces at 2 in the morning, you gotta be having some sort of conversation.
Man, sometimes I kick myself in the ass these days, and even though it's not my fault, but I was raised to be in the military too. My stepfather was
Everybody wanted me to, but I was too smart.
14 years in the Marines, and he got shot in the leg in Vietnam. And like I said earlier, he was a truck driver that delivered ammunition back and forth.
You ever hear the greatest beer run ever?
I just wanted to make him proud, man. I tried so hard to get in, and I had scoliosis in my back, and I thought that me being fat, because I weighed 350 pounds in high school, was going to keep me out. But he was like, nope. They got special programs for people like you that they put them in there and only give them so many calories per day. And they got to do the same exercise that everyone else has to do. Fuck that. That sounds horrible. But I was willing to do it. They wouldn't let a stupid little crooked back.
Shit, they wouldn't let me join because I was a single parent who didn't want to sign off custody of my child to my mom. Because I tried to join up after 9/11. Back when I was stupid. Like I said, I was smart, but then I got stupid. Then I got smart again.
Got smart about being stupid.
Yeah, making stupid decisions. I mean, if you want to serve, more power to you, and thank you for your service. That cliched phrase that everybody's made worth $1 bill instead of it being the big.
Well,
thing
it
that
depends
should
on
be.
who it comes from, because like literally.
It's half-assed for most people, though.
I switched my
It's like a hello.
license plates over today, and the car was actually registered to he's passed now, my stepfather, and it was kind of hard at first, because he had his Marine things that go around your license plates there.
Yeah.
And I kind of was just like, you know what? I'm not in the Marines, but fuck it, I'm keeping these things on here because,
Hey, it doesn't mean you were in it.
Right.
You can, like me right now, I'm wearing an Air Force.
Right. I mean,
dungy,
but
but
when I tell someone, thank you for your service, I really mean that from the bottom of my heart, just because I know what it's like to live with someone who, I mean, he actually, his cause of death was complications from Agent Orange.
oh yeah, well, my buddy's dad was exposed to Agent Orange in Vietnam, and he himself, my friend Andy, never, he was born in 1980. His eyes to this day still twitch. That was terrible stuff. My stepdad would tell me about that, and my grandpa would too, my adopted grandpa. I got a unique viewpoint on the Vietnam War because I didn't see it from two different sides, but I saw it from two different point of views from the same side. Yeah. My stepfather was a Navy SEAL who never actually went on it. He wasn't a tactical member. He was in the rear with gear person of the Navy SEALs.
Yeah.
And my grandpa Hugh, my adopted grandpa, I'm not Vietnamese at all. He's full on Vietnamese, and he fought in the ARVN. So I got to hear stories from both sides, and the ARVN stories are really f***ed up because sometimes he'd tell you stories about waking up and sometimes they'd be gone.
Well, I mean, the
People would
Korean
just be
War and the
gone.
Vietnamese War, they were horrible. They were
Oh,
fucking
yeah.
horrible wars. Like, I mean, you can almost say they were worse than World War One and Two because, for one, there was no winner. Not that there's any winner in war, anyways, but
And the biggest reason we shouldn't have been
they
there.
just lost a lot of good people on both sides. Like.
I think the one thing we forgot about in Vietnam that differentiates from Korea, because Korea was kind of more of a policing action because it's still holding up to this day. The war is technically still on. There's been no peace. It's just a ceasefire at this moment, and it's been that way since the 1950s.
Yeah.
And that's why there's a DMZ that you can't go through. So that's actually still an ongoing thing. But in Vietnam, the one thing that America never really realized is that it's not that we had no business being there. We weren't realizing what we were fighting. We were fighting ourselves 200 years ago. There was no way we were going to win that fight. It was like the British coming in and trying to take over this place after we declared our independence. The war would have lasted for 1,000 years. Yeah. They would have never surrendered because we were the invaders to them. We were there to help, yet for the most part.
If things stayed the same, but
as we got there and as the war progressed, I mean, when we first got there in the 1950s, we were okay because we were just advisors. But once the early 70s came along and you were still doing combat missions in, say, 71, 72, before they ceased in 73, you had things like My Lai happen and stuff. The psychosis of being in war for too long was happening. And that's when the lasting effects, the turmoil, I think, in the American eyes happened in Vietnam, is you get a lot from the hippie side that, you shouldn't have been there and this, that, and they call them baby killers, which fuck those assholes, fuck hippies. The fucking selfish people, they've always been selfish. They're the me generation.
Fucking fascists.
Yeah, fucking fascists. Now come be exactly like us on this place out here in the woods.
Much like today, what they deal with over in the Middle East, like that's why they got on the whole baby killer rant is like in Korea, just like in Iraq and stuff that they're finding. You can't tell the difference between who's friend, who's foe, who's neutral. You don't find out until something's.
I mean,
for the
at
most
some
part, it's
points
because
on
all
both
of them don't want you to
sides.
be there.
I mean,
yeah, like if you can't tell, like,
some of those Americans
that was
were ruthless towards those people.
That's what I mean.
Like,
Well,
what the fuck?
Well, that's why I brought it up, because you didn't know. That was the difference between World War I and World War II and everything after that. Those sides, there were clear uniforms. You knew who you were fighting. Vietnam, you're sent into a jungle.
You're sent into a village where
everyone
they've
that's
got
trying
guns
to-
underneath their brooms and...
Yeah, everyone that's trying to kill you looks like everyone that lives there.
Yep.
That was the problem. You didn't know who your enemy was until you're either
And
already shot.
like you said, like it. Well, I don't really technically believe that there would never have been a clear winner. I believe that if
there would have been. It would have been Vietnam.
Yeah.
no, I mean in Korea even.
Oh, in Korea?
Because
There
what
will
would
be
happen-
eventually. There has to be.
What will happen?
And it'll be South Korea. Have you seen satellite pictures? North Korea is like in the Middle Ages.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. But what I'm saying, like, as far as the country itself, like, if we continue to press them and keep pressing them, yeah, do I think that they do have something somewhere where we don't know about? Of course. I mean, it's
yeah.
easy to hide
Everybody
shit
does.
from right. But
Shit, I got
believe
places
if
that
we
he
keep
doesn't know about.
pressing
Yeah, I live
them
with
and
him.
keep pressing them, they're not going to be able
It's
to
not
keep
butt
up
stuff.
with us as
Well,
far
but
as
it's-
technology.
Technology doesn't matter. Because the one reason we didn't do so well in any of those conflicts wasn't technology. It was terrain.
Oh, here's a cool thing.
It's their homeland. It's jungle terrain we're not used to. So they have a clear advantage regardless.
The one thing that the North Vietnamese feared from my grandpa Hugh said, because actually his brother fought for the North Vietnamese regular army, was the one thing they feared was not our technology, was not us. They feared our air power. They feared the planes, because we could drop fire from anywhere at any time.
Which
Napalm.
we still have one of the best air
Exactly.
forces in the world too.
And
So I mean,
as long as you got the air, you've got it.
Yeah.
that's true too. But I mean, there's also a lot of shit that can be underground that
Oh yeah.
can't be affected by that too.
Yeah.
So, I did hear something about that they have one of the best bombs for. I don't know if it's a torpedo or how it is, but it comes from the ships. And there's the United States has one of the most powerful missiles or torpedoes or whatever that can literally destroy everything.
Oh yeah. I believe it's a superclass Trident missile. Comes up out of the sea even.
And it just everybody's just talking about us being invaded, and
Yep. They can actually.
there was
launch it
for a
on
long
water.
period of time I didn't think that it was possible for us to be invaded, but
Oh yeah, we've been invaded before.
I'm thinking that it's
Recently.
possible.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Well,
With
on a
the,
grander scale, I'd say give it time. Because one thing a lot of people don't know is the reason why the Japanese didn't push any further than
but they'll
Pearl
lose
Harbor.
because of the same reason, though. Because I mean, there's so many people in the United States that are armed.
Well,
That's
I was
why
just getting to
Japan
that.
didn't.
That's why Japan didn't push forward after
To the mainland.
Hawaii. Because they knew per capita the American citizen was more armed and more well prepared to defend
Although
themselves.
we
I've got
were
enough arms
invaded
to-
by both Germany and Japan during World War II on American soil. We were invaded on our homeland. The Germans invaded North Carolina, and the Japanese invaded the Aleutian Islands of Alaska.
Yep. And there was
I did not know about North Carolina, but I
there
did know
was
about the
one
Aleutian Islands.
war-related death on American soil because of Japan.
It was funny. Do you want to hear about that one?
They
tell you
used
about
rice balloons essentially. They make them out of rice paper and whatnot. And they
Oh, yeah, the
attach
bombs.
Fire bombs to them, and they just let them go.
They let them into the jet
One
stream.
of them, yep, and one of them just happened to land somewhere in America, and this family were out and about. The husband went to go check it. It went off, and he was the only casualty on American soil from the
Wow,
war.
nope, I did never
Yep.
get that.
Yeah, what happened was they sent a covert team of German spies to invade the American South to try to get the African Americans to uprise against the white Southerners and everything, try to create a
Right,
race
right,
war.
mhm.
And they were so inept that most of them couldn't speak English, and the ones that could had such a thick German accent that the first time they got to a southern city, everyone knew that they shouldn't be there. And so they were rounded up within like 24 hours, and it was thwarted before it could even happen. We did get ships sunk in New York Harbor before we learned to shut the lights off at night. But yeah, the German U-boats were sinking ships in New York City during the war.
Shit.
But the last time we were actually properly invaded, most people don't realize, was by Mexico. Pancho Villa invaded
Oh,
Texas.
yeah, that's
and
right.
We're being
Arizona
invaded
and
by Mexico right now.
Well, that's good. kind of different. But
They just don't have any weapon. Well, they do. Some of them.
Yeah.
do.
But no, that's
Pancho
really
Villa
weird.
went on raids.
Yeah, that was just before World War One too, because wasn't it MacArthur?
No, they sent
Or was it
Patton himself
Patton?
out
Yep, that's right.
to take him out, and he's
General
the first one that
Patton.
used the mounted machine guns on a motorized vehicle
Yep.
during that campaign to kill
He-
Pancho.
That's how we
But
got him.
we lost a great American during that campaign that no one ever likes to talk about because we still don't know what happened to his ass.
It's,
He was an American author.
Ambrose?
Ambrose.
Oh yeah, that's
Bierce.
right. He just kind of up and
Ambrose
disappeared.
Bierce was supposed to go down there and cover the Pancho Villa raids and everything, and he was noted for hating Pancho Villa, and he just never came back. And if you know anything about Ambrose Bierce, most of the people say
he's probably
when they
got
found it
some
that he went out
issues.
into a field and just disappeared, like in one of his stories, where there's this story of a father and a son in a horse-drawn carriage going down the road, and they see a guy walking through a field, and they turn to talk to each other, and they look back, and he's gone. That's just the whole fucking story. He was a writer during the Civil War era. He was a veteran of the Civil War. One of the first known cases of PTSD, and it
It
caused
showed
his
in
writing.
his work.
And
It really did.
his most famous work, I guess you could say, was made famous by The Twilight Zone when they made an episode. They actually borrowed it from a French film that won the Cannes Film Festival in 1962 called An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. It was, I believe it was the it was the 22nd episode of the 5th season in
Is that the
1963.
one where he goes over the bridge and
Yeah, he goes over the bridge when he's supposed to be hung, but he splashes down in the water and he's chased the whole way. And when he gets within inches of his wife, he snaps back and he's actually being hung.
God, you remember? I love the Twilight Zone.
That was in
Yeah.
Ambrose Bierce story.
Me too. I've seen every episode.
Yeah, he has a regular
thousands.
marathon. Was it New Year's?
Well,
Yeah.
when I was a kid, they
Yeah.
used to have a marathon on Sci-Fi Channel and stuff like that. And now, since cable and everything else has gone kerplunk, I
No, I think they
I
still
own it all.
do.
I know, but I don't have it.
Yeah,
Streaming
he's got
services are
he's
crap.
got all of it
I've got-
digitally, so he runs his own marathon.
I run my own marathon, but I
And
have
it's not
special
just-
stuff.
Yeah, it's not just like Twilight Zone.
I have the
It's
pilot episode. that
Anything
it's
Rod
extended.
Serling, so like Night Gallery, gets put in
Interviews,
there.
special episodes. I have the Charles Dickens movie he made in '64 that
You
was
like
supposed to be the
Hitchcock
first
as well?
Twilight Zone movie. Yeah, I actually include the Alfred Hitchcock Mysteries and the Alfred Hitchcock Hour in it as well, which predated it by a couple of years. But the Twilight Zone, the premise of it wasn't really all that original. It was preceded for a year and a half before by a show called One Step Beyond, which was hosted by a guy who actually directed an episode of Night Gallery before it went off the air, Mr. Anderson. Can't remember his first name, but Alcoa Film presents. Sorry, that was an aluminum foil company that sponsored it back in the day. It was a very terrible show, production value wise. But if you ever watch it, you'll see all the Twilight Zone actors, the gaggle of actors they used throughout the time. But you'll also see the premises of the stories are kind of the same, except for One Step Beyond was all based on quote-unquote true accounts. And the reason why I bring up One Step Beyond is because everyone should watch it. It only lasted 2 seasons, but famously, if you can find it, and I stress if, I think they still have it up on YouTube. There's an episode in the 2nd season where Mr. Anderson goes down and tries ayahuasca for the first time. And it's the first on-air trip of an hallucinogenic on a human being.
What is that, peyote?
No, ayahuasca is a drink. And, yeah, he goes down and he trips balls on
I don't think
TV
he-
for a half
yeah.
hour in the 1950s.
He didn't realize
With a whole
what he
gaggle of
was
people.
first.
Yeah, and it's just, I mean, the censors banned it after it aired the first time, but if anybody should ever want to watch something that's twisted from the 50s, watch that. I mean,
Found footage worth finding.
because Mr. Anderson, he talks all proper like, and then once he's on the wow, you can just see it happen. And but then if you're really into Twilight Zone, it continued. I remembered it because of what we're doing here on the, I guess you could call it the predecessor to the podcast, the radio show called Zero Hour, which ran in the 1960s and I believe in the early 70s as well, which is essentially the Twilight Zone, but in old 1940s radio format, where there was no, it was just on the radio.
Interesting.
A cool thing about the Twilight Zone, before I get off that topic, is two films that, if you want to include it in the canon of the Twilight Zone, that you have to see is Batteries Not Included.
Love it.
Because that was originally supposed to be
It's one of my favorite
Twilight
movies
Zone
as a
movie.
kid.
It was supposed to be part of the Twilight Zone trilogy, but Richard Matheson and Charles Beaumont ended up dying. He's the one who actually wrote that one, and but the other one was What Dreams May Come.
Don't know if I've seen that.
It starred
Got
Robin
Robin
Williams and
Williams.
Cuba Gooding Jr.
Yeah.
Early 2000s. It's a
Robin
very good
Williams
film.
was an amazing actor. Dude.
It was one
Both
of his
those-
more serious roles. It's kind of
And the third movie was
Dante's Inferno-esque.
called The Doomsday Flight from 1966. That would have been Rod Serling's contribution to the Twilight Zone trilogy movie that they were going to come out with. That, if you've ever seen the Sandra Bullock, Keanu Reeves 1994 blockbuster Speed,
Yep.
you will be very familiar with it because that's what they ripped off for Speed. Doomsday Flight is from 1966, and it's about an engineer who gets disgruntled about like I said, it's like Speed. He puts a bomb on an airplane. The airplane goes up, and it cannot go below a certain altitude, or else it'll
Didn't they
explode.
make Speed 2? Wasn't that the airplane?
I
Something
have no
like that?
idea.
Yeah, I'm pretty
After
sure
I
it
saw
was one
Speed
of them.
1 and I realized what the premise was, I didn't watch any of the other ones. But yeah, because Doomsday Flight
Didn't
is so much
somebody
better.
really do that though?
And
I don't know.
yeah, I believe they did back in the day. I want to say it was the shoe bomber there. That it was an altitude bomb that he used, but yeah, in that one they solve it by just landing in Colorado, Denver, because it's above the altitude that they needed. But yeah, after Charles Beaumont died and they couldn't get the technology really right to do Batteries Not Included in the late 60s, Rod Serling started crafting another idea for a movie to replace that one in the trilogy, which he actually ended up being the last thing released by Rod Serling. 1974's The Time Travelers. It was a made-for-TV movie about two scientists and a guy from NASA. He's kind of a military guy. Go back in time to the time of the Great Chicago Fire to try to get a cure for a disease that they need in the 1970s. But the time machine puts them in a different spot in a different time. So instead of having like a whole week, they only have 24 hours to find it. You know, the whole thing. And it's got oh God, I can't remember his name. He's the silkiest, smoothest voice in the history of cinema, playing the lead guy.
I remember
the
the
doctor. But he was also the actor of the episode that was supposed to air of The Twilight Zone the day Kennedy got shot. But they didn't do it. Oddly enough, that episode, if you ever watch it, it's Probe 7 Over and Out. It was supposed to air that day that Kennedy died, but they ended up pushing it 2 weeks, so that the next episode ended up being actually a long-distance call where the old lady gets the phone call from the grave. But Probe 7 Over and Out, it's the story of Adam and Eve, where
Oh,
an
yeah, that was
astronaut
a damn
crash
good one.
lands, and there's also another
was one of
astronaut
the-
who crash lands, and they meet each other, and his name's Adam, and her name's Eve, and
Yeah,
they call the
it's-
place Earth.
One of the silent episodes, they only
But
say
there's
a couple words the
it's
whole...
like silent the whole time, and,
Yeah.
and me, I'm a big silent film fan. I
It's weird that you
love
mentioned that
silent
because I'm
film.
literally like my son
But if you were
has
to
been
watch
listening
it,
to the Bible. Like we've been listening to the audio on the Bible. So when you bring up Adam and Eve, it was just like that's where we're.
but yeah, with it being silent, all you get are really radio calls from Earth, from whatever other planet they were from, to where now is it Earth, and back and forth, and you get these little noises and whatever. It actually seems poignant that that's the story they wanted to tell on the day that America, quote unquote, lost its innocence, and it's a story of innocence. breathed out of hardship because the reason why they're there and they can't get back is because both planets went to war and completely annihilated. They're two separate planets that didn't know about each other. Their distinctive planets went to war with themselves and individually and destroyed their planets, so they had to start
the
new
sole
ones just
survivors.
too. And it just seemed fitting that the day Kennedy got shot, that they were trying to send a message that we're at the brink.
Yeah,
They didn't know just how
Weren't
right they
there a
were.
lot of his episodes that got pulled just because of how too close to on the head they were?
There's an episode called
They didn't pull these Simpsons episodes.
Yeah, I know.
well, it was a different time. Yeah, there was an episode after Kennedy died where the town was stuck in darkness forever, and at the end of the episode, they started listing off other places where darkness was, and it was just a little spot over the Berlin Wall, and a street in Dallas, Texas, and all this other stuff. And that's actually the show that's rumored that got them canceled because the censors were getting sick and tired of them.
One of my favorite
Doing
episodes
stuff.
is the one with that they. Well, it's kind of different from the movie, but with Billy, the little kid
Oh, yeah.
that thinks about stuff and it happens.
It's actually based. Those are from books. They're stories. I can't remember who actually wrote them, but yeah, those. That one's a good one. That's considered the scariest episode in Twilight Zone history.
I don't know. Talkie Tina used to always get me.
Oh, so yeah,
Yeah.
I remember that one too.
I
And
don't.
the masks.
Fuck
is that what it
Chucky,
was
fuck
called?
any
The
of
ones
the
where they
other-
had the face masks that didn't look quite human. They were
Oh, the one where they were all disfigured.
yeah.
Where being disfigured or hideous was beautiful. And
Yeah.
Mine actually was the last ever. Well, not the last ever episode. That one features the actress who actually does the voice for Rocky Raccoon in the Bullwinkle and Rocky series.
shit.
So it's hard seeing this little 10-year-old girl with a raspy, everybody, trying to be all innocent, but it's just so gravelly and everything. But the episode before that, when they're
Man, guess
invaded
what
by
I'm
an
watching
alien, that one
tonight?
used to scare the crap out
When
of
I
me.
go to bed,
Twilight Zone. Yeah, I'm thinking
I
about
love
it too.
that shit, dude.
I will be starting on New Year's Eve.
Yes, you will.
What's the other one that
I
they
usually
used
end
to
up in
have during
April or
the
May.
'80s?
Night Gallery? Or?
No, Amazing Stories.
Oh, Amazing Stories! I have everything that's included in it as well, including the reboot they did in 2020, where they put out a new
Oh
season.
yeah, I do remember that. I tried to watch some of
I
those
have it
as
all,
well.
and it's all amazing.
Those are not real.
No, what those are is it's what I consider the actual true continuation of the Twilight Zone because they used Charles Beaumont scripts. His wife was a consultant. They used actors from the Twilight Zone series. Christmas '85, the sheriff in the town actually, the actor who plays him plays the guy who goes back to his childhood every night in one of the hour-long episodes from season 4. I cannot put my finger on the name right now. I'm letting myself down. But yeah, there's that. The second reboot of the Twilight Zone in 1985 was not bad. They had a lot of the original actors come back. They did a lot of. What I really hate is the rehashing, the trying to recreate the old episodes new. That's where they went wrong with the one they just had recently here when they tried to do
Which
the
one?
sequel.
The one with, who was it, Peel?
I believe it was Jordan
Well,
Peele.
no. What they should have did was literally do a sequel to each episode. Like,
Well, the beauty about that show was, like, they weren't interconnecting stories or anything. If you really think about it, all his stories had, like, a moral message.
But that's
So they were fairy tales. It's just no one's trying to contribute to the work in a meaningful way. They're just trying to recreate what he already made.
That's the problem with that sort of show, though. That's what Serling always said, and everybody always said. The problem with that sort of show is its serialization, is non-serialization. The fact that it does not have a fluid plot point. You don't know what to expect from week to week when you watch the show, so people don't know to tune back in for a continuing story, that. Anthology series are very hard to do. Actually, right now would be the perfect time to do it with the streaming services we have. That's why when they rebooted the Twilight Zone back in 2019, I thought it would last a lot longer than the 2 seasons that it did. Although I'm thankful that it gave us Rod Serling back for 1 episode. They recreated Rod Serling on screen, and he was actually the first usage of a dead person
Yeah, that's right.
acting.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Modern day things.
Yes, they recreated.
The stuff they kind of want to do now with
Did
James
Rod
Dean
Serling
and
die
everything.
of lung cancer?
He died of lung cancer. Well, he died of heart failure, I guess you could say. He had a heart attack and then he had heart surgery in 1975, and he died.
I read that him and John Wayne were in a tie for smoking most cigarettes. They used to smoke back to back to back to back cigarettes.
You know, Rod is the only actual human being inducted into the Science Fiction Hall of Fame.
He was an awesome dude, man.
I mean, there are human beings inducted, but they're not inducted as themselves. Like William Shatner's in there, but he's in there as Captain Kirk.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Rod Serling is in there as
It's
Rod Serling.
Yeah, because he was the omnipotent narrator of the Twilight Zone.
Oh, and I also have the first episode of the Twilight Zone where he's not narrating.
Yes.
And it is goddamn awful.
Do you know who the original was? You're gonna shit your pants. You know who it is, just not from that show. He was paired up with a fierier redhead.
Desi Arnaz.
Ricky Ricardo. He
Desi
was
Arnaz.
gonna be he was gonna be the original host for.
Because the first
He was
time they
gonna
ever
be,
had
or
one.
he actually
He
was?
did on the
He
pilot
won-
episode.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, the
He
pilot
did show me
episode,
that one, yeah, it's weird.
It's from the Desi Lou comedy, or the Desi Lou hour that they used to have back in the day, and he hosted the show, and they had the time question, or the time element. That's actually the name of the first proto episode of Twilight Zone. It predates the Twilight Zone by a full year, but that's one other thing you don't know locally about local heroes. Lucille Ball's from Syracuse, friends with one of her descendants. She looks just fucking like her.
The Baldwins are from Baldwinsville.
And Lucy and Desi, they went and they invested in things they believed in. Without them, we wouldn't have Star Trek, for Christ's sake. They're responsible for Star Trek.
I know how important that would be to some people, but to me,
I used to be a Trekkie until I had a girlfriend who showed me the true word that is Star Wars. But then I showed her the true world that is Spaceballs.
Spaceballs. Yes. Fuck yeah. Love that movie.
Oh man, I
May
finally
the shorts be with you.
I finally got a 720p copy of the Ruddles.
The Ruddles?
Oh god, you've never seen the Ruddles?
No.
It's Eric Idle's solo Monty Python spoof of the Beatles. The Ruddles, All You Need Is Cash.
You had me at
amazing.
Eric Idle.
It's amazing.
That's the dude from.
Monty Python.
No, that's not who I'm thinking of.
You've probably seen him before. Him and John Cleese are all over the place.
He's not that.
You're probably
black
thinking
guy.
of Gene Wilder.
Gene Wilder's awesome.
Gene Wilder was awesome, yes.
Yes, he was.
So was it Richard Pryor though.
Mm-hmm.
Them two worked so well together.
Yep, Richard Pryor was originally supposed to be in Blazing Saddles. MGM didn't want him because of his outward drug use. And Mel Brooks, just to put big old fuck you. You remember the scene where they're sitting passing the cigarette back and forth? They're not passing the cigarette back and forth, and they're stoned through most of the movie if you pay attention. So yeah, Mel did that on purpose though. He's like, oh, I can't have him because of that? Fuck you.
Although I do have to disagree with Mel Brooks on one thing. He ruined, for me, one of the greatest long jokes in the history of comedy. As you know, you may not, and anyone else may not know, I'm a huge fan of Andy Kaufman and Andy Kaufman's style of comedy. And one of Mel Brooks's films, as we all know, is called History of the World, Part 1. And they never made a second part.
Mm-hmm.
Until this year.
What?
I know.
Please tell me it's not.
I
Mel's
haven't seen it.
doing.
I haven't
I know
seen it.
he's almost like 80-something.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's
he's gotta be
involved.
older than
It's
that.
Because that was one of the greatest long-running jokes. Like, even when I was a kid and first discovered it, even my friends were like, "Well, where's the second part?" I'm like, "That's the beauty of it. That's the joke. There is no second part." And it covers up until what? End of the French Revolution, I think.
I believe.
Yeah, and then it just ends.
Alright, I gotta get going here.
Yeah,
guys.
we're at holy shit. We're at like almost an hour and 40 minutes. This is our longest one so far.
Oh yeah, thanks for joining us, man. It was
Absolutely.
some people may have thought
Most
it
of
was
the time I just
boring,
do
but
this
it
by
wasn't
myself.
boring to me at all.
Yeah, no,
We
that,
talk about old movies and stuff like.
actually, next time we have you in, hopefully.
It's a lot like
be
old
able-
music. Like a lot of people don't realize that the shit that you listen to now came from
You
music.
can ask
that,
him. I do this at home just to myself. Sometimes I'll run out the door when I think of something that somebody needs to hear, but other than that, you'll hear me just saying this shit to myself in a room.
Well, we'll definitely have you back on, Derek, for sure. We didn't really get to talk much about history, really. I mean, we did a little.
Oh,
but-
we covered history just
Oh.
all over the
yeah,
spectrum.
music history.
Yeah,
And
that's the
This
thing.
is how our conversations go.
movies, and we'll hopefully see Frank next episode. We have to do his Japanese Kit Kats that we got in today. So let's hope he feels better, and we'll see you guys next episode. Thanks, Derek, for coming on in, and of course, always thanks, Rob, and thanks, Gypsy, for sitting in on this
Yeah.
episode.
Little Gypsy sat in with us.
See you guys next time.